Thanks everyone for coming to class. So, hey, Tommy, thanks for joining. So welcome. So this class is our runner's class, and it was actually one of the first ideas Greta and I came up with for this class outside of sciatica and injury. And I kind of wanted to bring it back to explaining certain injuries that are common and very treatable and able to rehab at home by yourself. Just with the proper knowledge of it, it's really easy to take care of it yourself and save some money and time and learn about your body. So today I chose plantar fasciitis because it is our running class, and I've been running more, and mine's has personally been flaring up. So I was like, what better time to address it? So let's learn. Share screen. Oh my God, I have so many things open. Okay. Start. Cool. So what is it? So plantar fasciitis is the inflammation or degeneration of the fibrous connective tissue along the bottom of the foot that stretches from the heel to the toes. So it's inflammation of the muscle fascia between the heel and the toes specifically. That's kind of the definition of it. Signs and symptoms of plantar fasciitis: dull aching or sharp pain along the foot or the heel, sudden pain that builds gradually. It could be pain that you experience over the course of a few years, but comes in waves. So certain months at a time, it's worse and then it goes away. And this is natural. The body always adapts. So it's going to come in waves doesn't mean it's gone. You'll have some may experience stiffness in the arches of the feet or in the ankle joint. The symptoms of plantar fasciitis do get worse after prolonged activity or standing for a long period of time. And also the symptoms improve with things like stretching, with things like rest and ice. That's how you know. So what does plantar fasciitis have to do with running? So the most common cause of plantar fasciitis is just chronic overuse, standing on your feet, waiting tables, running miles, same. It's overuse of the foot. It could be caused by an issue of your footwear or your foot support, or a sudden increase in activity. So plantar fasciitis often comes when you're like, I'm not going to run for a month, but then I'm going to run 5 miles. It's very common for plantar fasciitis to flare up if that's the case. Your foot is exposed to 3 times the body weight with every foot strike as you run. So if you have your body weight and you multiply it by 3 and then take the number of strides you make in, let's say, a mile, that's a lot of weight for every foot strike you're doing, and a lot of strikes. So the feet take on a lot, and we put a lot of work into them. The last thing is the Achilles tendon, which is attached to the calf muscle. If that is tight, it will pull up on the calf and pull up on the bottom of the foot, causing the plantar fascia to be tight. So if your calves are tight, which is really, really common in walking and running and standing, it could also cause plantar fasciitis. I'm just going to go over this muscle really quickly. This is kind of the most superficial muscle. So it's like when you touch the arch of your foot, your finger's on this muscle, and it's called the Abductor Hallucis. Hallucis means of the big toe in Latin, and that's because this muscle is responsible for dorsiflexing the toe. So that means standing on your tippy toes, that stretches this muscle. It's also the muscle you use if you are gripping your feet. So if you're on the ground in yoga or just your toes curl in for any specific reason, that's this muscle working. It's also very important to note the kind of white tendon attachments you see here. If you are experiencing any types of sharp or shooting pain, it's most likely a tendon tear. And so that'll happen around the big toe or around the heel. And that's how you can kind of identify it as a tendon tear. You can test for plantar fasciitis by simply lifting your big toe. And if the pain symptoms are reproduced with the passive lifting of the big toe, you probably have it. But you want to just lift that big toe, and that'll tell you everything. All right, and so in class today, here are 3 poses that we're going to do that are going to kind of help us support and maintain plantar fasciitis symptoms. The first is half shoelace with a forward fold and block support, which I'm doing in the picture. And that is if you have the block pressed up against your foot, which we'll go over in the sequence, it'll give a nice stretch to the calf muscles, and you'll maybe even feel it in the bottom of your foot. We're going to do a toe squat, and this is the big one and no one's favorite, but that stretches the muscles on the toe, on the sole of the foot. And then we have Malasana, which is a frog squat. And so that places the ankles in a deep, deep dorsiflexion, bringing the ankle up as if you were taking your foot off the gas. It puts it in that big stretch and gets into our Achilles tendon. All right, and that's it. I will pepper in more anatomy and I'll teach a section of the class, but let's bring it quiet to do some.
That was awesome, Veronica. Thank you. And before we get into the yin part of class, we'll start with a clearing breath and then also 3 rounds of Om. And also, hi, Mary. So go ahead and find a comfortable seat. Take a moment to anchor your tailbone to the ground, to feel the points of contact between the tops of your feet, the sides of your feet. And then with that anchoring sensation, that groundedness, also find length and levity in the spine. Relax your shoulders, release tension in your jaw, your forehead. And then we'll do 1 clearing breath. Inhale in through the nose. And exhale, HA release out of the mouth. This time, prepare for Om. Inhale. Inhale, breathe in. And exhale, release the breath out. And with that calmness, you just really tapped into taking that with you and making your way into Supta Baddha Konasana, bringing soles of the feet to touch. And even before you lay your back down, deciding like the distance you want in between your heels and your pelvis. And you can definitely leave like a generous distance. It does not have to be super tight. And then coming to lay on the back. And we're going to be in Supta Baddha Konasana for 5 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and start my timer and also give us a halfway point here. And also this is a good, if your knees are up really high, it can be helpful to put blocks or support under the knees. That can be a nice way to sustain this pose. Hands can rest on your belly. They can come down to the sides, anywhere they're not going to draw too much attention, anywhere that feels soothing. It's going to bring you a sense of ease. And I'm going to briefly talk about the Yin practice. And Yin energetically is the opposite of Yang. And they're these complementary, oppositional, energetic forces that coexist and are mutually dependent on each other. And their qualities shift in relationship to each other. So Yang energy tends to be active, it's intense, it's bright. And Yin is the opposite. It's dark, it's mysterious, it's intuitive, it's yielding, and it's regenerative. So finding those qualities and integrating and incorporating them into your practice. And really, like right now, if there was an adjective that stood out to you, or if there's another Yin quality that you know that you like to kind of cultivate, bringing that in right now so it can ride with you throughout the whole practice. And there are 3 tattvas, 3 truths, 3 pillars to this practice. And the first is to find your gentle edge. We already found our gentle edge in this pose. And creating that gentle edge with support if you need to, using props, using pillows, using rolled up blankets or towels or yoga mats, and really utilizing that in your practice for support. So finding that gentle edge, that permanent depth, it does not have to be your full range of motion. You may want to pull the edge back a little bit so you can sustain for time. And then the second thing is to be still. And in stillness, we often also are cultivating quiet. And my relationship with stillness and quiet has evolved a lot over time. I used to feel the need to fill quiet in teaching and as a student, just with like the restlessness of the mind. And still, I think without thinking about it, I tend to lean in that direction. But if the mind ever does become very restless, utilizing the breath as a tool to ground you, to recenter you, finding somewhere in your body where you can feel the breath and direct your awareness there. And we are at the halfway point. So finding the gentle edge, being still, following your edge if your body invites you deeper, and avoiding any pain. Definitely no burning, sharp sensations, no stabbing sensations. And then we hold for time. I keep track of time on my phone, and I give a halfway and a final minute mark in that way. And I guess the only other things I'll say is I kind of like to integrate mindfulness into all the yoga practices that I teach, and turning towards yourself with compassion and kindness, and not judging yourself or feeling the need to fix anything or suspending elements of criticism. You don't have to do any of that stuff. Just arrive in it and be as you are. It may not be the same as last week or as you were last year. Letting all those expectations go. We are in the final minute here. And when you do come up and out of the pose, which you will do over the next 20 seconds, before you move, strategizing your exit strategy, like being like, ooh, I want to press my hands to lift my chest, or I just want to slowly unfurl, kind of discerning how you'd like to exit. kind of bring some mindfulness into the transition. It can be really easy to overlook transition. And so slowly now over the next few breaths, you can begin to close your legs like you would close a book, bringing the knees back towards center. And taking a moment right now to scan and be like, what does my body want to do here? Do you want to draw your knees in towards the chest? Do you want to take windshield wiper with the legs? Like, what is it that would feel like a nice form of release after that hold? And then gently make your way up to a seat. I know some people love to rock and roll the length of their spine. You may choose to kind of just roll off to one side. And either way, coming to a seat. And then extending the legs out, kind of coming into a half straddle. And it may be helpful to have the pelvic bowl tilt down. I know sometimes the width of a block is actually too high for me. I need like half that width. And so I've got this blanket that I'm going to roll up, and that's going to help my pelvic bowl just like tilt down a little bit. And then extending the right leg out long, bring the left knee into the inside seam of your right leg. And slowly begin to fold over the right leg. And as you fold, you may be like, you know what? I would like some support for my chest. And grab that support. Grab a pillow, grab a couple pillows, grab a block. Maybe you even bring a micro bend into the right knee so the chest can more easily fold forward. And I'm gonna set our timer. This is actually one of our shorter holds because we're doing some other holds later. It's kind of just like an introduction, kind of waking up the muscles early on in class. And quickly, before we get too deep into it, giving yourself a body scan. It is the beginning of class. You may be carrying some residual tension from the day. I just noticed my jaw was tight. Maybe you will tension in your shoulders or neck. Just kind of letting that tension go, unclenching the toes or relaxing your belly. Really getting passive with the muscles. And this is the halfway point. And then the final minute. And then slowly begin to press your hands back into the mat, lift the head, lift the chest, unfurl, come up. Take any free movement you need to, and then shift. Shift to the other side. Extend the left leg out, bring the right foot to inside seam of the left. Maybe you need to situate your block or whatever you're using underneath to tilt the pelvic bowl down. And then inhale to lift the head, lift the chest. And exhale, fold forward. And maybe you do need to bring a little micro bend in the left knee so you can really let the chest flap forward. And you can just experimenting, like how does a bent knee affect the range of motion, since everything really is fully connected. And this is a little past the halfway point. We're coming up in the final minute mark here. Final minute. And then using the next 3 breaths to move intentionally, slowly, lifting the torso, unfurling your spine, and coming back up to a seat. Moving any props you need to out of the way. And to you, Veronica.
Thanks, Greta. Okay. Oh, yeah, this next one's easy. The next one is child's pose. So we're not also going to be here for very long. We're just kind of using this to kind of get into the back body. We're going to do some squats. So let's begin to open up our hips. But for child's pose, I like to start with coming onto my heels in kind of this king's posture, opening up my legs to make a V as wide as you'd like, and then walking my hands forward and settling the chest towards the floor. Your forehead can rest on a block if you'd like to have a little support on your neck. You also don't have to go all the way forward. You can also support maybe your back a little bit by having a pillow over your heels just to support the tailbone. We start our timer. Again, this isn't too long of a hold. We're just using it to kind of prep our hips. If you want to put one ear to the mat, I'll tell you the halfway point and you can switch to the other ear. All right, we're coming up on our halfway point. I always like to, in this pose, if we're thinking about our anatomy, I like to almost, to get into my body, trace the zigzags my legs are making. So I kind of start at the toes. And with every breath, I just kind of visualize, the calf. What is it pressed up against? Oh, it's pressed up against my thighs. My knees, what are those touching? They're touching the mat, but there's also a big compression going on right behind the leg or behind the knee and that soft little popliteal fossa back there. And then I move up to my thighs and I think about how those are kind of, compressing right at the hip. Just making a little zigzag back down. All right, over the next couple of breaths, begin to press yourselves back up using your hands, coming up slowly to sitting back on your ankles, taking some head movement, and whatever shakes you need to do before our next pose. Our next pose is going to be our toe squat. So this is our shortest posture, and I'll explain how to do it as quickly as I can and get the timer started. So how you do the toe stand is you come up to all fours, and I like to place all 5 toes or as many as I can on the mat. And you'll immediately kind of feel in, even with your hands still on the mat, a stretch in the back of the feet. And if that is enough of a stretch for you, just stay here. If you want to lean your weight back on your hips and press yourself up to a seat, hands on the knees, this is the toe stand, putting your body weight on just the toes. So timer's going, we're here for 1 minute. This is the ultimate burner. There's no way you feel it. You don't feel it. I remember once I went to a Yin class. It was back when Posers was doing free classes at Plum. and someone started off the sequence with a toe squat, and it was like 4 minutes long. And I didn't know what to do with myself. We're about halfway. Anything pinching or shooting, go a little easy and maybe move out of the posture a little bit. But if it's just kind of dull and achy, that's probably how it should feel. All right, go ahead and release that. Come forward. Our next one is we're going to tuck the toes in and simply roll back on them, stretching the front of the ankle. You can even kind of like roly-poly this. And this is we're just trying to get into the front of the foot and release whatever. You can maybe give your ankle a few twirls, wiggle the toes, but we're not in that toe squat anymore. I actually had this idea the other day to take a picture of my feet in toe squat for a month just to see how more flexible they get over time. And I might still do that. All right, our next pose, we're going to come to all fours. We're going to do melting heart. So for melting heart, start on all fours, joints stacked. And we're going to just simply walk our hands forward until our chest is on the ground. It's like an extended puppy dog or a child's pose, but our hips are raised above our heart. And instead, we just kind of sink our chest into the floor. You can either have chin on the mat or forehead on the mat. I'll start my timer here. But this is really good to get into the shoulders, the lats on the side of the body. I can often feel a stretch underneath my shoulder blade too. Make sure anything that's holding, whether it be your toes, your jaw, you can breathe here and see if you can relax those parts. And this is halfway. And final minute. Over the course of the next few breaths, slowly come out of this melting heart, moving each hand up the mat closer to your body to press yourself up, back on all fours. Whew, and release it. You can do some cat cows, move the spine around. Our spine was just an extension, and we are almost always hunching forward. So putting it in that extension is a big release for the spine. And then our next pose that we're going to do is the squat. So there's a couple ways to get into the squat. If you already have a favorite way, please do that. But my favorite way is to go through it by dangling in a forward fold. So I'm going to come to standing. And I'm going to do a couple half lifts. Inhale, look up, exhale, fold back down. Inhale, come all the way up to standing. And exhale, come back down. And then wiggle out the head, maybe walk the feet. Just get everything relaxed. And then from here, we come into our squat. So we're going to take our legs a little bit wider and slowly begin to, just like a frog, come between them. Now, this pose is quite demanding on the hips, so grab a block. I'm going to put my block on the highest setting because my hips are just not flexible today. And you can too. I'll face the camera so you can see how wide my feet are. Like this. You can also place some support underneath the ankles. So roll up your yoga mat and place some support underneath them if that fits your squat. I'll start my timer. Another good thing about rolling up the mat or placing some support underneath the heel is it allows for the top of the foot, which can be very sensitive and also very prone to injury and spraining of the ankle. It gives it some relief and doesn't put too much stress on it if you're feeling it there. If you're feeling pinching at the top of your hip, move out of the pose a little bit or add some support to lift you a little bit higher. All right, and this is our halfway point. Making any adjustments you might need to. Maybe you feel like you can go deeper. You're ready to move the block into a different position, or you could just hold for time and get deeper and deeper into the stretch. Getting into the deep muscles of our hips, of our glutes. Awesome. This is our final minute. Look up and I see some beautiful frog poses. Everyone looks really great. And everyone looks so still. Which is great. Stillness is the name of the game in Yin. All right, and then like Greta was saying earlier, we're going to take a second to kind of visualize our way out before we begin moving. And I'm going to visualize coming back up to a dangling pose on my feet standing, and then coming up slowly with my spine vertebrae by vertebrae up. So go ahead, and we are done with the squat. Plan your move. Either push up to dangling or just simply roll off your block and release that deep hip stretch. All right, Greta.
Cool. Thank you. And now we will get into our hamstrings and our hips. I think Veronica and I both adore the neck stretches we're about to do. And we'll start with the left leg extended long. And then bring the right leg up and over the left. And this could be half shoelace if you want to give it a name. The right leg might be kind of high up. If the knee is high up, you can find a pillow or something to support the leg or the knee if it needs that support. And also, Veronica mentioned in the video, you could use a block right here at the bottom of your foot to kind of add another layer so the leg is not activated. If you don't have a block, you could also just kind of like, I've got this like air purifier over here. I could use that instead of a block, and actually it's a little more stable, so I'm going to use that instead. And then moving the glutes out from underneath you, pelvic bowl is tilting down, and then slowly making the chest move towards the floor. And as you round, you might find some support for the head with a block. You may find some support for the chest with a pillow or any other object you have lying around. Get creative, building your setup. And I'm going to go ahead and set our timer. And this is one of our longer holds. We're going to be here for a total of 6 minutes on this side and also 6 minutes on the other side. So really finding a sustainable edge, knowing you can hold for time. This is the halfway point. I'm using each halfway point as like a little check-in point, like, hey, actually, maybe I want to get rid of this block, or I did not get all the support that I needed. Maybe I add something in. Maybe you pull the edge back. Maybe you go in deeper. And this is the final minute marker. And slowly begin to unfurl your spine, lift the head, chest, and take any free movement or wiggles. You can unthread the right leg from atop the left. I like to take some bouncing in the legs, especially that was a pretty long hold. Maybe some windshield wipers. And then we are going to transition into half pigeon from here. So go ahead and bring the right shin forward, bring the left leg behind. And if you know you like to take half pigeon on your back in like a figure four, you're more than welcome to go there. I know that's some people's preference, especially if you're feeling it in your knees or your ankles. But getting yourself all set up, maybe finding some support for under the right glute. We are going to be here for 5 minutes, which is quite a bit longer than we usually are, like in a vinyasa setting at least. Bringing the chest down. And you are welcome, of course, at any time in half pigeon to thread the needle under the left hand, bring it in between that little window you've created, and bring the right cheek to the mat. Sometimes I love doing that. Sometimes I actually feel like I feel more when my chest is down. So you're welcome to add in that layer if it's interesting to you. And we'll be here for 5 minutes. And the hips are containers. And if you think about the way the pelvis is shaped, it's like a little bowl for where the femur comes in and moves around. And sometimes there can be like an emotional release that comes up, especially if this is one of the only times we really carve out for stillness and quiet. So I always just like to acknowledge that in case like today is that day where you feel like crying and have pigeon. It may just be more of a physical thing. But I did want to, I was kind of doing my homework for Yoga Nidra on Sunday, the full moon, 28th. And I was looking into the astrology for this week. And tomorrow, Thursday, was kind of some fun astrology. And so I thought I would share it just because I did the homework already, and half pigeon can be kind of intense. So it's nice to kind of have some distracting content during half pigeon. And this information I learned from Channing Nicholas, so I want to give credit there first. Venus on Thursday, so that is tomorrow, it makes conjunction to the sun. And that is just means that Venus is going to be close to the sun, and Venus is going to be so close to the sun that you're not going to be able to see Venus. And astrologers kind of find this to be kind of like an elusive, mysterious time. And the moment that Venus moves very close to the sun on Thursday is supposed to be sort of like a clarifying ritual. And the sun, like we talked about at the beginning of class, it's heat, it's light, and it can kind of be like a fresh fuel moment. Like the fire creates heat, you can stoke things, and it can almost be, Channing Nicholas used the word purify, which I think sometimes brings up like weirdness for people, but it's kind of just more of like a cleansing. It could be like a release of expectations, of your own expectations. It's kind of a time to wash the grime off and refresh yourself. And some questions you could pose as like a reflection at this time. And what does Venus moving through like this portal with its closeness to the sun signify to you? Is there anything that you need to release into the sun, this central force? And if you wanted to think about just Venus in terms of like astrology, Venus represents our connection and our relationships. It has to do with beauty and aesthetics and creativity, like what attracts stuff to us. And also like what we're in relationship in, what we're in union with. And so maybe just using that as like a little prompt to reflect and notice if anything comes up tomorrow. It may not. You may be like astrology, whatever, but I think astrology is kind of fun. So just noticing. And we are on our final minute. And then slowly discern your exit strategy. You might choose to walk the hands back towards your hips. You might be like, there really only is one exit strategy. Tuck under the back toes, engage your back leg, and send the right leg up high for release. And enjoy that moment of release. Take free movement. Rotate the femur around clockwise, counterclockwise. And then go ahead and plant the right foot down. And we'll transition to the left side for half pigeon. Inhale, left leg up high. And exhale, half pigeon on the left side. Bringing the knee down and tucking the back toes. Bringing left knee behind right wrist and getting yourself set up. This side might be totally different. You may want to take figure four on this side. And I'll go ahead and start our timer. Maybe you want to go for thread the needle. You did on the other side. And this is the halfway point. And final minute. And slowly begin to maneuver your way out of half pigeon. Come into a three-legged dog to release that long hold. Likely is going to feel really good. Or maybe even like a release noise or stretch you want to take. And then slowly making your way down to a seat, letting the hips fall off to one side. And we'll do the other side. So this time, extend your right leg out long. And grab anything you need to help support pelvic tilt down. And then bring the left leg up and over the right. And this side may be another story. So really, if you need support on this side, you can on the other, that's totally okay. And I'm gonna get our timer set here. And fold forward. And if the mind is becoming restless or it's planning or fantasizing, trying to bring it back to that quality that you picked at the beginning of class, that yin quality. Might have been a regenerative quality, or maybe you liked kind of reflecting on Venus and the idea of it moving close to the sun. Almost like refueling, or I'm almost imagining just like getting burned to a crisp but then like ready for new life. Maybe like a phoenix or something. And this is the halfway point. We're a little past. And this is the final minute. And gently begin to shift yourself up to a tall seat. And unthread the leg. And after all that holding, I actually want to bounce my legs out. You may also want to take like this form of tabletop as a form of release. Or maybe you extend the legs out. Just do any movement that feels organic and natural after a long hold like that. And we're just going to do a quick gentle supine twist to rinse out the spine, and then Shavasana. So come back to laying down, and then you can draw the knees in towards your chest. Maybe you roll the ankles clockwise, counterclockwise, or roll on the sacrum, briefly kind of feeling the spine on the ground. And then just let the legs fall towards the left. Right arm goes out like half of a T, gaze can be up. Your left hand can come on top of your ribs or your side body, just gentle supine twist. Bringing the spine back to a place of neutrality. And then bring the knees back towards center and let them drop towards the right. Left arm goes out like half of a T, gaze can be up or towards your fingertips. Gentle twist. And then bring the knees back towards center. Hug them into your chest. Take any last little fidgets you need. And release into Shavasana, into final rest. And I will let you know when it's time to come up and out of Shavasana. Shavasana is the final rest pose. It's often what it's called. Sometimes translated as corpse pose. It's kind of finishing, completing the cycle, and granting it just as much validity as you would a moving pose or a pose like half pigeon where you're really feeling it and knowing that there's just as much benefit to be reaped in stillness and in quiet. Completing the cycle. And slowly begin to invite movement back into your body. And start really small and then become more expansive, more noticeable. And eventually bring the arms up overhead. Draw the knees in towards your chest. And then decide if you want to roll onto the right side, which is more yang, or the left side, more yin. And coming into a fetal position. And sending a wave of appreciation to yourself for carving out the time for doing a practice like this and for having the time to do a practice like this. And honoring the lineage of this practice, going back the yoga side to its roots in India, and on the inside, its roots in meridian theory and Chinese medicine and Taoist theory. And honoring those teachers and those lineages, those roots, and also honoring the unceded ancestral lands of the Coast Salish Squamish people that I occupy here in Seattle, and in Brooklyn, the unceded ancestral lands of the Rockaway, Canarsie, and Lapade, and any other indigenous land that we are on, as we are in multiple pieces scattered throughout the nation. And then from here, gently press yourself up to a seat. And if it feels authentic in your practice, we'll meet with hands at heart center. And this gesture in yoga, it represents non-dualism. And it's the coming together of these oppositional complementary forces that crop up in so many different ways, that crop up in so many different dichotomies in a very dualistic Western lens, trying to find non-dualism. And then bringing hands from heart center to third eye. Strengthen the connection between your heart and your mind, compassion and intuition. And bowing forward to sealing your practice. Honoring the whole self, both shadowy and luminous aspects. Peace and thank you. Thank you for being here today. I love the runner's class. I love that sequence. It feels so good. I'm gonna go ahead and pop my Venmo in the chat box and also my email, which is my PayPal. But now that I'm thinking about it, everyone here is familiar with this structure. Veronica, any tidbits to add?
Nope. I was mid-yawn. I hope everyone's feeling good. Thank you for coming.
Yes. And yeah, I hope that everyone has a calm rest of your evening and a wonderful Venus Thursday. And hopefully we'll see you back next week. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Apollo was here practicing with us this whole time.
Great call. That's awesome. Thank you guys for a great class, and I hope your contact comes back. So
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it.
awesome.
Thanks for being here.
Everyone have a great night. Thank you.
Good night,
You
Jerry.
too.
Thank you.
I'm really excited for your Nidra, Greta.
Thank you. I'm excited too, actually. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good full moon.
I feel it.
Full moon in Libra.
Mhm.
Good things are coming.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ashley. Good to see you.
You too.
Thank you guys.
Thanks,
Thank you, Emma. It's so good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Big love.
Thank you, Mary.
Good. Didn't fall asleep.
Bye.
Cool.
Oh,
Jason?
God.
Hey, what's up? Oh shoot, I didn't